live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
Monster Hurricane Dorian hovers over the Bahamas. Surging seawaters and ferocious winds sow chaos in the low-lying island communities, killing at least 5 people and spurring mass evacuations on the U.S. East Coast.
8 people are dead and more than 24 missing and feared deceased after a scuba diving boat catches fire and sinks off the California coast with passengers trapped below the deck by the roaring blaze.
Hong Kong's embattled leader insists she does not want to step down after an audio recording emerges of her saying she would quit if she could as political unrest in the city enters its 4th month.
And Hawaii-based nonprofit Aloha Harvest partners with the Iglesia Ni Cristo in a food donation drive.
I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. Monster Hurricane Dorian is ravaging the Bahamas, striking as one of the most powerful storms on record and still pummeling the islands more than 36 hours later. No power and devastation everywhere you look. Dorian brought surging seawaters and ferocious winds. It sowed chaos in the low-lying island communities, claiming at least 5 lives now, and it has also spurred mass evacuations on the U.S. East Coast. Bahamas Prime Minister Hubert Minnis termed the hurricane a historic tragedy for the archipelago. Let's listen in.
We are in the midst of a historic tragedy in parts of northern Bahamas. The initial reports from Abaco is that devastation is unprecedented and extensive. They are deeply worrying. The images and videos we are seeing are heartbreaking. Many homes, businesses, and other buildings have been completely or partially destroyed. There is an extraordinary amount of flooding and damage to infrastructure. I wish to report that the United States Guard is already on the ground in Abaco and has rescued a number of injured individuals.
Dorian was downgraded to a Category 3 storm now after lasting as a Category 5 hurricane for over 24 hours and clocking winds of 185 miles per hour while battering the Bahamas. Now that decreased to 150 miles per hour during the hurricane's slow crawl following landfall on Grand Bahama Island. Now it's a Category 3 storm. Dorian exceeded previous estimations by becoming a Category 5 storm and is carrying the strongest winds in recorded history in the northwestern Bahamas, according to NASA. It has been reported as the second strongest Atlantic hurricane record.
Famous Spanish-American chef Jose Andres traveled to the Bahamas to provide fresh meals with his relief organization, the World Central Kitchen, to residents weathering Hurricane Dorian on Monday. Footage shows Jose Andres filming himself in the midst of a violent storm while explaining that this is going to be the biggest ever. The celebrity chef later filmed himself alongside Edward Fields, the Senior Vice President of Public Affairs at Atlantis, whom he praised for his involvement in the relief efforts.
Hi everybody, I'm here with our friend Mr. Ed Fields, He's the senior vice president for Atlantis Resort Government Relations, and him and Atlantis, they've been helping World Central Kitchen, trying to helping together the people of Bahamas. As you know, Abaco and Grand Bahamas is badly damaged, and it's amazing for me to see the private sector and all the people of Bahamas, from the Prime Minister all the way to every single person, coming together to try to provide relief aid as quick as we can. We're going to be going Abaco hopefully tomorrow, but again, the hurricane still is over Grand Bahamas, and we need to make sure that everything is safe for the relief teams to go in and help. Anything else you want to say to our friends?
Meanwhile, Florida is beginning to feel the effects of Dorian, with heavy rain and gusty winds forecast, and the possibility of tornadoes on Tuesday U.S. time, according to the Miami-based National Hurricane Center. As it lumbers slowly across the Bahamas towards Florida's east coast, Governor Ron DeSantis, in a morning briefing at the State Emergency Operations Center, continued to urge residents to prepare for the major hurricane, which is expected to lash the coast for days. Take a look.
The latest track on Dorian has it a little more than 100 miles east of West Palm Beach. It has done what the model suggested it would do, and it is essentially stalled out. It's moving about 1 mile per hour, and that was predicted to happen for most of today. And then the forecasts are that it will then begin a descent north. Obviously, when and how that happens is going to be critical for impacts in the state of Florida. But our East Coast certainly is within the cone still, and people need to remain vigilant. If you're ordered to evacuate, you need to do that from Palm Beach County all the way up to Nassau, the Florida-Georgia border. All those coastal counties have issued evacuation orders, and it's important that residents heed those calls. Get out now while you have time, while there's fuel available, and you'll be safe on the roads. We have the gas stations along the evacuation routes we've confirmed are going to remain open. Some of the gas stations in the evacuation zones, you may see some of those start to close soon, but the ones on the routes are going to remain open. I've expanded the suspension of tolls to include routes in and around Jacksonville, like the First Coast Expressway and the I-295 Express Lane, and of course we suspended tolls on a number of roads in Florida yesterday. Also, the Central Florida Expressway Authority has suspended tolls on a number of roads in and around Central Florida. Now, the following 5 ports have been closed: Miami, Everglades, Fort Pierce, Palm Beach, and Port Canaveral. Jacksonville and Fernandina are in condition Yankee. Obviously, as the storm moves north, their status could change, but as the storm moves north, we anticipate some of the southern ports reopening. But we are in a situation where the storm is stalling very close to our coast. It is going to make a movement, and the movement that it makes is going to have a lot of impact on Floridians. And so please listen to the instructions, heed the instructions, do what you need to do to keep you and your family safe.
A lot of these people are experienced with these hurricanes. We aren't. We come here, they say they're going to feed us. We got food, but we just want to make sure the kids can, survive through this and have the right environment. At home with the lights off, we don't know.
At Landmark, we are a pet-friendly shelter, so people here are able to bring their dogs, cats with them. We are one of the largest shelters in the area, so we are open and ready to receive people.
How many people can you accommodate here?
Oh, wow. We can accommodate about 2,000 people.
As Hurricane Dorian nearly stalled over the Bahamas on Monday, Florida officials nervously eyed a projected turn north that could still drench the densely populated East Coast with storm surge and rainfall and knockout power, depending on how closely it skirts the shore. All 3 eastern U.S. states have ordered coastal residents to evacuate, affecting close to 1 million people. Neighboring North Carolina has also declared a state of emergency, as has Virginia further north. Now a Category 3 storm, Dorian is on track to move dangerously close to Florida's east coast. Hurricane warnings were just extended further north in Florida, millions of residents are under mandatory evacuation orders from Florida into South Carolina as the region braces for hurricane-force winds, life-threatening storm surges. Hurricane Dorian is about 110 miles east of West Palm Beach, Florida now, according to the National Hurricane Center's 8 a.m. ET advisory. And the storm is still a Category 3 storm with maximum sustained winds of 120 miles per hour.
Hurricane Dorian is hammering the Bahamas and may be the strongest on record to ever hit the region, UN weather experts said on Monday. According to the World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, Dorian landed as a top-level Category 5 hurricane with sustained wind speeds of 270 kilometers per hour, miles, or that's 168 miles per hour. It is proving to be devastating for Grand Bahama Island, and the damage has been made worse because the weather system is very, very slow moving. In addition to Hurricane Dorian, WMO partner, the U.S. National Hurricane Center, is monitoring 4 other potentially dangerous weather systems in the Atlantic over coming days. The center's advice to people in the Bahamas is to remain in shelter. Midweek, life-threatening storm surges are expected along Florida's east coast, and they are increasingly likely along the coasts of Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina later this week. The peak of Atlantic hurricane season is around the 10th of September.
You know, whilst we will not necessarily see an increase in the number of hurricanes because of climate change, we are likely to see an increase in the very intense ones, such as Dorian.
This briefing on the hurricane.
Meanwhile, the World Food Program said thousands of people are affected by Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas and are in need of food aid.
Abaco may require food for more than 14,000 people, and Grand Bahama for 47,000 people. One more time, we need to be careful with those numbers. They need to be confirmed after the assessments. We will be finished in 3 days.
Several people are dead and more than 24 missing and feared dead after a scuba diving boat caught fire and sank off the California coast with passengers trapped below the deck by the roaring blaze. Take a look.
Right now they're conducting shoreline searches for any available survivors. The vessel has been in full compliance. We are working deliberately with the vessel owner operator who is with us at this time, working on a plan to conduct further assistance for his vessel. It's at Platts Harbor, I believe. Isn't that correct? Right? Platts Harbor, 20 yards off of Platts Harbor on the north side of Santa Cruz Island. The only Mayday call we received was the vessel was engulfed in flames. That's all we received.
Fire crews in helicopters, small boats, and a Coast Guard cutter battled the fierce pre-dawn fire on the 75-foot Conception, which had been on a diving excursion around Santa Cruz Island, just west of Santa Barbara in Southern California. But the Coast Guard said blaze and intense heat prevented them from breaching the vessel's hull to search for survivors before the craft sank. The dense fog further complicated rescue efforts.
I do know specifically that there was an accident off of one of our Channel Islands and there was lives lost. It's a dive excursion group that's well known and well maintained.
Very good reputation, good people, everybody loves them, always safety first. All I know is there was a fire in the boat. From what I understand, all of the guests were down below in their bunks. Crew members were on top, and tragic. Something went haywire. Nobody really knows. Can't speculate on what happened because you don't know. Other than there was a fire, and what caused it is still unknown, I think.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows on OSN channel 725, same day as the Philippines. Watch your favorite Net25 shows live and on demand anytime, anywhere on any mobile devices on OSN Play.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Hong Kong's embattled Chief Executive Carrie Lam insisted she had not even contemplated resigning at a press conference on Tuesday. This comes a day after an audio recording emerged of her saying she would quit if she had a choice.
Well, first of all, in very clear and strong terms, I have to refute the second point. I was and am still is very disappointed that my remarks in a totally private, exclusive session, which is a lunch actually, which clearly is subject to Chatham House rules, have been recorded and then passed to the media. I think this is quite unacceptable. Okay, so to further suggest or allege that myself or the government have any role to play in this thing is absolutely unfounded. So that point has to be made extremely clear. On the first point about resignation, I said on several occasions previously and also reaffirmed by my colleagues in the Chief Executive's office in response to media inquiry that throughout this period, that is from the very beginning till now, I have never tendered a resignation to the Central People's Government. I have not even contemplated to discuss a resignation with the Central People's Government. The choice of not resigning is my own choice. Okay? But if you want to understand, because in a private session, I just attempted to explain that as an individual, given the very difficult circumstances, might be it was an easy choice to leave. But I told myself repeatedly in the last 3 months that I and my team should stay on to help Hong Kong, and to help Hong Kong in a very difficult situation, and to serve the people of Hong Kong. That remains my position. Simple and strict answer to your question is I have never tendered any resignation to the Central People's Government. So your answer does not arise. I have never tendered any resignation.
Thank you very much. Beijing on Tuesday threw its backing behind Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam after an audio recording emerged of her saying she wanted to quit over 3 months of unrest in the semi-autonomous city.
我们坚定不移地支持林郑月娥行政长官和特区政府依法施政，坚定不移。
Hong Kong has endured dozens of sometimes violent pro-democracy protests triggered by opposition to Chief Executive Carrie Lam's bid to push through a law allowing extraditions to mainland China. The Chinese government expressed its support for Lam after Reuters news agency released an audio recording of her telling business leaders last week that she wanted to step down and take responsibility for the unrest. The chief executive did not question the authenticity of the audio recording. The press conference followed another weekend of protests, the 14th in a row, with clashes between police and demonstrators throughout the city. The movement was sparked by changes to a law which facilitated extradition to mainland China.
Now, thousands of black-clad students rallied in central Hong Kong on Monday at the start of a 2-week university boycott, piling pressure on the city's leaders to resolve months of increasingly violent anti-government protests that showed no signs of easing. Students gathered at Edinburgh Place and outside the Chinese University of Hong Kong, where they were heard shouting slogans like "Liberate Hong Kong, Revolution Now." Protests have been taking place in Hong Kong since the end of March.
They will have some punishment when if the school knows I'm attending this protest, but never mind. I didn't mind any punishment. I'm fighting for my future.
And as Hong Kong is our home, like we are the future of the city, and we feel like we have to take up the responsibility to do something to save our home. And I think that is no longer about the political stance, but our own conscience. Because I think that what the police do to the protester is really very bad.
Hundreds have been arrested in violent clashes with police, and an increasingly shrill Beijing has labeled the protesters as terrorists, with an editorial by China State News Agency Sunday warning the end is coming. Meanwhile, a total of 159 people were arrested during the intense clashes with the police over the weekend, according to Assistant Commissioner of Police Mac Chin Ho during a press conference in Hong Kong. Again, let's listen in.
In total, these radical protesters have thrown as many as 100 petrol bombs randomly across the city. They have thrown petrol bombs onto the streets, endangering civilians and damaging shops in the vicinity. Various government buildings, like the Electrical Building, Central Government Complex, and the police headquarters also came under the attack of petrol bombs. Some even threw petrol bombs from a footbridge onto the police officers underneath. Some people trespassed and threw objects such as stones, steel bars, at a section of track near the airport station on the Airport Express. As an injunction order is enforced at the airport, all these radical protesters could be liable to the offense contempt of court. On the other hand, such rampant acts spread to other key transport infrastructure, mainly the MTR. Day and night, rioters vandalized around 1/3 of all MTR stations in Hong Kong. Between Friday and Sunday, we arrest 159 people in total, aged between 13 and 58, consisting of 132 males and 27 males. 132 males and 27 females. They were arrested for offenses like unlawful assembly and possession of offensive weapon and assaulting police officers, etc. This morning, we mount operations targeting acts of violence and breaches of the peace. We arrest 8 people for possession of offensive weapon and breach of injunction outside different MTR stations.
Basically, we have arrested 13 years old kids who was in possession of 2 petrol bombs, and 3 other petrol bombs were left behind the scene. The case was now investigated by the Regional Crime Unit of the Kowloon West region, and he was charged on the offense of possession of offensive weapons this morning and arranged to appear before the Kowloon City Magistrate this afternoon. And police have zero tolerance for all such violence acts. And when entering MTR station to enforce the law, basically we do not have to obtain any consent in advance.
Hong Kong activist Joshua Wong visit Taipei with fellow pro-democracy politicians to meet with Taiwanese political figures. Wong, along with other activists and lawmakers, was arrested on August 30 in Hong Kong in a sweep that rights groups said was taken directly from Beijing's playbook but released later in the day.
What important is how Hong Kong people in the past support the Sunflower movement and how Taiwanese people support Umbrella movement 5 years ago. When one country, two system is fully collapsed already, we urge people in Taiwan, it's time to safeguard Hong Kong and to support peoples in Hong Kong to fight for free election. When we strongly aware of the white terror and the chilling effect generated by Beijing in Hong Kong and Taiwan, now is the time for us to show solidarity.
Going now to the Brexit crisis, the fate of Brexit hung in the balance on Tuesday as Parliament prepared for an explosive showdown with Prime Minister Boris Johnson that could end in a snap election. Members of Johnson's own Conservative Party are preparing to join opposition lawmakers in a vote to try to force a delay to Britain's exit from the European Union if he cannot secure a divorce deal with Brussels in the next few weeks. Johnson, who took office less than 6 weeks ago, has said he wants Britain to leave on October 31st with or without an agreement on how to end almost half a century of EU membership. Lawmakers will first try on Tuesday to take over the government's power to determine what legislation is put up for a vote. Then they will hope to get a chance to vote on Wednesday on a bill forcing Johnson to seek a Brexit extension until January 31st if no new deal emerges at an October 17 to 18 EU summit. They've even drafted the letter Prime Minister Johnson is supposed to present to EU Council President Donald Tusk in Brussels. Meanwhile, opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn said the Labour Party was ready for a general election.
So when a Prime Minister who hasn't won an election and who doesn't have a majority decrees that Parliament will be shut down because he knows his plan for a disastrous no deal doesn't have the votes, we say this is an attack on democracy which will be resisted. So first, we must come together to stop no deal. This week could be our last chance. We are working with other parties to do everything necessary to pull our country back from the brink. Then we need a general election. It is the people, not an unelected Prime Minister, who should determine our country's future. An election is the democratic way forward.
But if there's one thing that can hold us back in these talks, it is the sense in Brussels that MPs may find some way to cancel the referendum, or that tomorrow MPs will vote with Jeremy Corbyn for yet another pointless delay. I don't think they will. I hope that they won't. To show our friends in Brussels that we are united in our purpose, MPs should vote with the government against Corbyn's pointless delay. I want everybody to know there are no circumstances in which I will ask Brussels to delay. We're leaving on the 31st of October, no ifs or buts. I believe we will get a deal at that crucial summit in October, a deal that Parliament will certainly be able to scrutinise. And in the meantime, let's let our negotiators get on with their work without that sword of Damocles over their necks and without an election. Without an election. I don't want an election. You don't want an election. Let's get on with the people's agenda.
And secondary schools. And it's
To Syria's northwest now, where 7 health centers have been reportedly attacked, and 2 of them have been destroyed in recent days, the World Health Organization has said. In a statement, the UN Health Agency said that the facilities included 4 hospitals and 2 primary health care centers that were functional at the time they were hit. The attacks come at a time of increased hostilities in and around Syria's Idlib province, the last opposition stronghold in the country, which has been devastated by years of war. According to WHO, some 13.7 million people need health assistance in Syria, including an estimated 4 million in the northwest. In August alone, it reported that more than 13,000 people were displaced from northern Hama and Idlib governorates.
In other news, South African police fired rubber bullets to disperse protesters in the streets of Alexandra in Johannesburg as the financial capital is hit by a new wave of anti-foreigner violence. Take a look. South African police patrolled central Johannesburg on Tuesday after the financial capital was hit by a new wave of anti-foreigner violence. Rocks, bricks, and rubber bullets strewn the empty streets of Alexandra after mobs plundered the township overnight, burning and looting the shops in their path. The township was seen to a second night of urban rioting in Johannesburg. This is where hundreds of people marched through the streets on Monday in an unusually large expression of anti-foreigner sentiment. More than 90 people were arrested after looting shops and damaging property in Johannesburg and surrounding areas, according to a government statement released late on Monday. Now, such violence breaks out sporadically in South Africa, where many nationals blame immigrants for high unemployment, particularly in manual labor. South African truckers also started a nationwide strike on Sunday to protest against the employment of foreign drivers. They staged road blockades and torched foreign-driven vehicles in various parts of the country on Monday.
Since 1999, Aloha Harvest rescues and delivers quality, excess food to help feed the needy, hungry, and homeless in Hawaii. Unlike food banks, Aloha Harvest does not store any food. Instead, it delivers and distributes directly by partnering with organizations in the public and private sectors. One of those organizations is the Iglesia ni Cristo, or Church of Christ, through the Aid to Humanity outreach program. Our Hawaii correspondent Alfred Asenas has more.
To all the brethren and guests that are here, aloha! I feel the aloha spirit.
The Hawaii-based nonprofit Aloha Harvest recently teamed up with the Iglesia ni Cristo Church of Christ in its latest Aid to Humanity charity project at Eva Beach in West Oahu.
This activity is an activity launched by the church administration inside the Iglesia ni Cristo, being done all over the world. So our aid to humanity in this part of the world, here in Oahu, is our food donations to the Aloha Harvest. And to all the brethren who donated these foods, from the ministers and workers leading the brethren, we'd like to thank you for your wholehearted help and support. Let us give us a round of applause.
Before introducing Aloha Harvest, event organizers described to the audience the magnitude of the food items that were donated on Oahu Island alone.
And as you can see behind us, all of these boxes are filled with food. In front of us is bags of rice, and even behind the stage is double the amount of boxes that we have in front of the stage. So you can see the amount of food items that we've donated. Thank you so much, brothers and sisters. She brought along a huge 20-foot truck I don't think we can even fill that. We're going to fill it, and we're going to also put food items on the top of that truck. Now, Aloha Harvest, what they do is they rescue, their sole mission is to rescue food items, and they take it directly to the social service agencies here in Hawaii. And I believe you service of over 175 social services here on this island.
Aloha Harvest representative Deborah Van Zyn was then presented with a certificate of appreciation from church officials led by Brother Marcel Ramirez, the supervising minister for Hawaii Pacific.
Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ, Ecclesiastical District of Hawaii Pacific, hereby presents to Aloha Harvest a total of, we lost count, by the way, so we can say, I think it's over 6 pallets full of food items. And we're donating it from the Aid to Humanity Food Donation Drive, dated the 25th of August, 2019, signed by Brother Marcel A. Ramirez, our district supervising minister.
On behalf of Aloha Harvest, I want to thank everybody that's up here and all of you out in the audience for this amazing donation that we've gotten today. It is so generous, and it's such a testament to the community that you have here to just give from the heart. And this food is definitely well needed and much appreciated. So again, on behalf of Aloha Harvest, our board of directors, and all of the participants here tonight, thank you so, so much for everything.
As the nonprofit enters its 20th year, Deborah recounted Aloha Harvest's recent experience during last year's natural calamities throughout the Aloha State, and even took the opportunity to encourage other communities and groups to forge a partnership with them in combating hunger.
It was definitely a new set of circumstances, that's for sure. It was learning how to react quickly. It was learning to focus resources where they were needed. Give us a call. We'd love to have you. We'd love to be able to work with you, to partner with you. We are always willing to take volunteers if you want to volunteer. If you have food that you want to give us a call. Check us out on Facebook.
This is not the first time that Aloha Harvest worked alongside the INC. To recall, in 2017, a record-breaking 6,600 pounds, about 3,000 kilograms of food was donated, an amount which, according to the nonprofit, would take about 3 days to accumulate. The Global Church in Hawaii accomplished this in just 4 hours.
Unfolds, and for now, reporting from Ewa Beach, Hawaii, I'm Alfred Esenas, 1 with 25.
More news will be coming your way when Eagle News International returns. Stay tuned.
At least 10,000 public school teachers and 5,000 non-teaching personnel will be hired by the Department of Education under its proposed 2020 budget, according to Education Secretary Leonor Briones on Monday. Now, Briones also said that the move is part of DepEd's commitment to further improve teacher-to-student ratio, enhance learning, and ease the workload of its personnel given increasing enrollment levels in public schools nationwide. To finance personnel recruitment, DepEd is allocating 1.28 billion pesos for the creation of 5,000 new non-teaching positions and 1.27 billion pesos for the hiring of 10,000 teachers next year. The new hires will be assigned to different field offices and schools. The hiring of more teachers is meant to further improve the teacher-to-student ratio. The DepEd chief also said teachers will likewise benefit from the doubling of the budget for DepEd's computerization program, or DCP. In 2020, DCP will receive 8.99 billion pesos, covering 4,300 e-classroom packages and 42,010 multimedia packages for schools. The packages will help teachers in enhancing delivery of learning in the classrooms.
China said it had lodged a complaint against the United States with the World Trade Organization, or WTO, one day after new tariffs imposed by Washington on billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods came into force. The world's two biggest economies have been embroiled in a bruising year-long trade war, which escalated further on Sunday when Washington moved ahead with fresh levy hikes, which Beijing had promised to match. These American tariffs seriously violate the consensus reached by the leaders of our two countries in Osaka, Beijing's Commerce Ministry said, referring to trade discussions in the Japanese city in June. Washington's latest levies on imports from China took effect under a step-up, high-pressure campaign aimed at compelling Beijing to sign a new trade deal. President Donald Trump launched his trade war in March 2018, demanding that China end practices widely seen as unfair, such as forced technology transfers from U.S. firms and the massive subsidies given to Chinese enterprises. The additional 15% tariffs affected a portion of the $300 billion in goods from China that so far had been spared. Beijing has said it would retaliate by targeting $75 billion in U.S. goods, beginning in part on September 1. The trade dispute has rattled markets and hit growth across the globe. Trade negotiations between the two countries have been at an impasse for months.
Meanwhile, the pound plunged against the dollar and euro on Tuesday after British Prime Minister Boris Johnson threatened to call a snap election to push through Brexit, with analysts warning the currency would fall even further. Prime Minister Johnson's warning that he will call a poll for October 14 if rebel MPs in his Conservative Party vote to force another delay to Brexit raised the possibility of an extended period of uncertainty in Britain, where the economy is already struggling.
To show our friends in Brussels that we are united in our purpose, MPs should vote with the government against Corbyn's pointless delay. I want everybody to know there are no circumstances in which I will ask Brussels to delay. We're leaving on the 31st of October, no ifs or buts.
Now, the sterling, which sank around 1% on Monday, dropped briefly to $1.1959, its weakest level since January 2017. The euro was also sitting around levels not seen since the second half of the same year, as investors prepare for a huge day in Westminster, with anti-Brexiters planning to hold a vote on their return from the summer break.
Space-starved Singapore has expanded outwards by building into the sea and upwards by constructing high-rises. But planners are now looking underground as they seek new areas of growth. Watch this.
We rely heavily on land reclamation to create a space. The next move is to move underground and make use of underground space. So then after this, I'm confident that we will be able to figure out other ways to create a new space for future use for Singapore.
Widespread adoption of Facebook's proposed Libera cryptocurrency could harm the European Central Bank's ability to manage the Eurozone economy and threaten the euro itself, according to a top official on Monday. Facebook announced Libera in June, promising the digital currency would be backed by real assets to escape the wild price fluctuations that hit pioneering schemes like Bitcoin. But central bankers, politicians, and regulators around the world are mistrustful of the private digital cash scheme set to launch in the first half of 2020. Depending on Libera's level of acceptance and on the referencing of the euro in its reserve basket, it could reduce the ECB's control over the euro, according to Yves Mersch, a board member at the Frankfurt Institution. What's more, the cryptocurrency could impair the monetary policy transmission mechanism by affecting the liquidity position of euro area banks and undermine the single currency's international role, for instance, by reducing demand for it, he added. With 2 billion Facebook users around the world, network effects could allow the Silicon Valley giant to draw large numbers of users to Libera for online shopping, financial services, and payments.
Beleaguered Chinese telecom giant Huawei on Tuesday denied accusations reported in the Wall Street Journal that it stole technology from a Portuguese inventor, accusing him of taking advantage of the current geopolitical situation. The WSJ reported last week that the U.S. Department of Justice is looking into the claim, potentially adding to existing criminal cases against Huawei. Huawei was in May swept into a deepening trade war between Beijing and Washington, which has seen punitive tariffs slapped on hundreds of billions of dollars of two-way trade. The latest controversy involves Portuguese inventor Rui Pedro Oliveira, who claims Huawei met him and then essentially ripped off one of his designs in order to produce the Huawei Envision 360 panoramic camera. These allegations are false, Huawei said in a statement in which it categorically rejects Mr. Oliveira's claims of patent infringement. For the past several months, the U.S. government has been leveraging its political and diplomatic influence to lobby other governments to ban Huawei equipment. Furthermore, it has been using every tool at its disposal, including both judicial and administrative powers, as well as a host of other unscrupulous means to disrupt the normal business operations of Huawei and its partners, the Chinese company said. It said Oliveira proceeded to feed a false narrative to the media in an attempt to tarnish Huawei's reputation. The United States is pressing allies with mixed success to reject Chinese 5G technology, especially from the giant mobile phone company Huawei. Washington fears that Huawei will provide Beijing with a way to spy on communications from the countries that use its products and services.
And finally, in our news, a theater group in Toronto has recast a short film into a stage play. Eagle News correspondent Eliza De Jesus reviewed the play and files this report.
IN Center Stage Toronto presents Story of Scar, a rewriting of the IN Cinema Toronto original short film depicting the value of friendship, Christian brotherhood, and strong faith in God while overcoming one's own insecurities and imperfections. IN Cinema is a film production of the Iglesia ni Cristo or Church of Christ with focus on entertaining, inspiring, and educating. IN Center Stage is a theater production version that includes live music and performances.
Like any creative production project, it's a step-by-step process. So first we had to write a script, and we had to keep revising and revising the script until it's ready, and then we had to audition across the district of Greater Toronto and found the actors, and then pretty much putting together all the production crew team along the way. It took us about 6 months to put this production together, and it's been a challenging but really rewarding a journey for not just for me but for every single member of the team. So yeah, it was good.
Story of Scar tells of the life of a 16-year-old challenged by her appearance during her adolescent years.
The darkness in our lives, we do go through it. We go through with it sometimes, you know. So for Scarlett, my character, she is very faithful. She has this strong faith, and she, with the help of Dylan, her best friend, people from church, her family, she was able to, you know, see the light out of that darkness. So I feel like for everyone going through anything right now, going through sadness, grief, all trials in this world, because, you know, it is really dark in here. So we need to hold on to our faith more stronger, so we could be able to see our path clear, just like the prayer, right? Yeah.
It was a long ride. What was it, 4 months?
Yes.
4 months of every weekend coming here to the chapel to practice over and over and over again.
And even on the weekdays, we had
even on the weekend, even on the weekdays.
Rehearsals on our locales.
Yeah, just Scarlett and we've created such amazing bonds throughout this play. Like half of the people here, I didn't initially know, and I'm just friends with everyone now. It's new friendships has arisen from this, and now that it's all over, we still have those friends from all across the district.
Reporting from Toronto, Canada, this is Eliza De Jesus, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Eliza.
Thank you, Eliza. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also, check out our boards on Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Alma Angeles, and we're 1 with 25.